Welcome in 304 Nation. I'm your host, Sam the Man, with my good buddy, Big Puck. What's up, Puck?
What's going on, Sam the man? How you doing this week?
Uh, not too bad, man. Still recovering from that West Virginia Tech game, man.
I heard
Between
you had a little
being,
bit of a field trip.
between being sick and fat, it was not an easy trip.
I feel you there.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna run down the West Virginia Tech game, talk a little bit about that, and then we're gonna do Puck's picks and just talk about a little bit of football. So hang around for that. As always, if you haven't subscribed, hit that button, hit that notification bell. If you're watching on Facebook, thumbs up, guys, and leave your comments. We'll get to them as we get to them. West Virginia Tech. I'm just gonna kind of give the rough and dirty down of it real quick.
Virginia
Blacksburg.
Tech was terrible. That's the
Well,
rough and dirty of it.
that was the rough and dirty of it. And, I predicted, everybody told me I was crazy. I predicted a blowout. 21 points is what I said. We ended up with 20 points, even though I think West Virginia probably could have hung another one on them. They didn't. That's fine. I will say this, the Virginia Tech environment, if you ever have a chance to go to Blacksburg, watch a game, absolutely wonderful environment. The fans are friendly, other than, some gentle ribbing of ancestral jokes hanging on frat houses, which were pretty funny. But we had dinner down there. There's a lot of things within walking distance of the stadium. The parking wasn't too bad. The trek in the stadium was not bad. I mean, it's very friendly. Everybody's super nice. I did wonder why I saw so many people, drinking so much booze, and then when we went to get some food at halftime and saw that hot dogs were like $2 and drinks were like $2.50 and like everything.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, the food, like me and Brandon, it was like 2 hot dogs. Three hot dogs, 2 pretzels, 2 drinks, and some M&Ms was $20. Like, it's super reasonable. So I imagine that's why everybody was drinking some booze, because super reasonable prices. It was all good. I didn't see any fighting. The fans were respectable. We were sitting in a predominantly Hokie-dominated area of the stadium, but everybody was friendly. The one thing that I will say is it seems like the Hokie fans like to drink and fall down the bleachers. We saw several of those. One happened directly in front of us, and we didn't know whether to try to reach out and grab the guy and catch him, or we didn't think he was going to fall, but he did. And if it hadn't been for the lady sitting down there, he'd still be going. But the game,
like a good time.
It was a good time. It really was. We got there way early. We thought, traffic would be bad. It really wasn't. The way they've got it blocked off, it's going to be quick in and out no matter what. It's actually a really good setup for a football stadium. I was super impressed. Now the game itself, I was underwhelmed by West Virginia's performance. The play calling early on, especially in the first 3 plays of the game, they ran 3 screens. I don't like those plays starting off when you've got, C.J. Donaldson averaging, 12 yards a carry, and, you don't try to establish your will right from the beginning.
I mean, it seems to me that both teams are trying to force things that weren't working the entire game. West Virginia with the screens that Virginia Tech was blowing them up, and then Virginia Tech couldn't get anything going on offensively. It was the second half looked like it was a train wreck for them.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. Everybody was forcing everything early on. West Virginia. I don't want to say that West Virginia won because they were the better team. Neither team's super good or anything like that, but Virginia Tech is rebuilding. It's obvious they're young. You give Brett Pry 3 years and that team's going to be turned around, but you're going to have a couple of down years to get there, because they have some serious talent deficiencies at quarterback and wide receiver, and it's obvious. Their defense, everybody was touting their defense, but they hadn't played anybody up till West Virginia, so I knew that was going to be the test for them. All in all, for the Mountaineers, it was a good win.
I mean, coming off the blowout for I think it was Towson that they played last week, coming off of that kind of win and then going into Blacksburg and getting that kind of a solid win there, I think the morale for West Virginia is definitely going to be high. They're going to come in next week's going to be even better. So, and
Yeah, for sure.
It's going to be the real part of the season here, the dog days of the summer for the
Yeah.
season, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia is fixing to dig in and start all their continue conference play, and it's not going to get any easier. But it was a good win. Virginia Tech, for the Hokie fans, I was very appreciative of all the friendliness. We had guys to come up, and I had a guy come up, and it kind of cleared out early, and I was talking football with my buddy, and there was a guy that heard us talking. He's like, "Hey, you care if I come up and sit with you guys?" Because we were just all talking football, and I mean, it was a really good environment. I was impressed. I had a better experience there than I've had in Morgantown in the past. Believe that or not. There's it seems like it was a little more controlled, so to speak. But all in all, it was a good time. It was a good win. Neil Brown takes a step off the hot seat for a little bit.
Still had a couple of questionable calls there, but getting
still,
better.
yeah. I mean, I think from Cancun for the channel. Thank you, sir.
Oh yeah.
You guys have a good time in Cancun. Congratulations. Our buddy McFly got married yesterday, or on Thursday. He got married on Thursday, so they're on their honeymoon in Cancun. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Chris. Have a good one. Have a good time on your honeymoon down there.
But I wouldn't hesitate to go back to Blacksburg just to watch the Hokies play anybody. It was, like I said, it was a really good environment. The food was very reasonable. The tailgating was everywhere. Like it was a good time. I was glad that I got to go.
Something I would want to witness in person is Inner Sandman. I think you and I talked about it this week against the West Virginia game. It seemed really underwhelming the way ESPN presented it. I don't know how it was in person, but
it's funny because my buddy that went with me, Brandon, he had never been to a college football game. So this was new to him, and he knows football, but he doesn't watch college football. He didn't know anything about Inner Sandman or anything. It was awesome. I will say that I went to the spring game, and they did it at the spring game. It was very overwhelming at the spring game. It was very underwhelming Thursday night.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. Now the stadium's shaking, that's scary. Like it's shaking. Like it's moving. Like it registers as a earthquake every time they do it. And now I understand why. But it was awesome. It was killer, but it was a little underwhelming. I expected it to be a little louder. It wasn't quite what I expected, even though it was still awesome. And then, of course, I have to draw this real quick before we move on, guys. It's funny to me that Virginia Tech's big thing is how they take the field, and that West Virginia's thing is they sing country roads after they win. It's not always about how you take the field, ladies and germs. It's kind of interesting that emphasizing how you take the field and how you come off the field is very different between the two schools.
Well, speaking of how coming on the field, the only thing I've seen all week is the videos of Dabo Swinney with Clemson running down and going full charge at first down that ramp and beating his players down there. That's been the only thing that ESPN's been covering for Clemson all week, because I know they're playing I have them as a really, this is a cupcake week for them as well against Wake Forest, but everything for Clemson has been, Dabo Swinney, how's he going to take the field this week?
Yeah, Brandon, I hope y'all guys had a good time. I saw your picture. I know you were opposite of us. We were like two sections over to the left of the band. And, like I said, it was predominantly Hokie, but, there was a few West Virginia people kind of smashed in there, but everybody was really respectable and nice. It was really enjoyable. Let's see. What's up, Tim O? Hope you're doing all right, buddy. But yeah, guys, I think West Virginia, the Towson game, you saw them come together a little bit more as a team. I felt like JT was off a little bit against Virginia Tech. His throws were a little early and a little late here and there, something that I didn't anticipate. But he cleaned it, he cleaned it up enough to where that didn't really matter. I mean, that does happen. Quarterbacks get off a little bit. And the wind, guys, let me tell you what, the wind, we were on the concourse at the end. We were at the end of the wind tunnel, man, and it was
howling.
It was howling. It was. But yeah, I'll put some videos up and pictures up for you guys to look at. It's a beautiful stadium.
Real quick, I want to ask you a question because you touched on it with the team coming together against the Towson game. I felt like the team came together week 1 against Pittsburgh. How do you feel? Like, if it wasn't Pittsburgh to open the season, do you think that we would be where West Virginia is now?
I'll tell you. I think West Virginia just flat out lost to Pittsburgh. That's the way. Here's the way I kind of look at the season to this point. Pittsburgh was the better team at that point in the season. For week 1, they were the better team. Now, if they had maybe played Kansas week 1 and then Pittsburgh week 2, I think we would have completely different results. Because I feel like West Virginia was right for the picking when Kansas came in. They come off of a hard-fought loss to Pittsburgh. You're going to be beaten, banged up a little bit. And Kansas, they schemed that game so well, they knew exactly how to beat West Virginia. I really think this process that they've been through the first 4 games of the season now, to get where they are, this was the only way to get where they are right now. I think if you play those games out of order, you might pick up one more win, but I don't think the team would have came as far as they've already come. I think even me as a fan, I forget that a lot of these guys are transfer players. They're just now getting in and playing together and working together under this coach and new offensive system. And, it takes a little bit of time. And, as fans, we want to win now, but we forget, it does take a little bit of time for these guys to actually come together to be a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. Oh, I was looking for you, especially after the game when the orange left early. Looked like the first day of hunting season with all that orange heading into the woods. I was shocked at how quick that stadium cleared out after that touchdown. It, like, in the third quarter, like, it was full, and then we looked around and there was nobody. Like, it cleared out. I mean, understandably
good city
so.
planning, I guess. Good for them.
But
and parties to get to.
But West Virginia coming in the coming weeks, they're going to be competitive in all their games, and that's what West Virginia fans, we need to be hang our hat on, is they will be competitive. We're not going to get blown out by anybody. But Neil Brown and his staff have to find a way to win close games. And that's the key, is you got to find a way to win. You got to coach to win and not coach to not lose. And that's what Neil Brown does.
All right, well, let's move on to the next couple games that we got going on today. But real quick, I wanted to ask you, how do you think they do against Texas next week? I didn't mean to cut you off there either, so I'm sorry.
It's okay. I think Texas is beatable for them. Is it at Texas or is that West Virginia? I think it's at Texas. I think it'll be close, but I would guess Texas probably pulls that one out. Traveling that far, it's always been a problem for West Virginia. I mean, that's a hard place to play, man. It just is. And, West Virginia can win. They got to shut down the run. You can't let I can't remember his name, Bijan. You can't let Bijan Robinson run free. You got to shut him down. You got to get pressure on the quarterback. I feel like Neil Brown and their staff have to outcoach Steve Sarkisian and his staff. They've got to really scheme. West Virginia, one thing West Virginia did against Virginia Tech that was kind of out of the ordinary was they went over the middle a lot. And I really liked the way that looked. Michael Laughlin, the tight end, had a couple of good targets. I think they need to hit him up more. I think I say this almost every week, he's critically underutilized. He's always wide open over the middle of the field. I think him and JT need to hook up a little bit more. establish the run early, let your defense do what it does, and hope that you don't get beat too many times deep. And keep the game close, give yourself a shot to win. I would say Texas probably wins by a touchdown, maybe a little less. If they can keep it within a touchdown going into the fourth quarter, West Virginia's got a shot.
Right on. Well, I want to talk about the game. You went to the game on Thursday. I want to talk about the game that happened last night, Virginia at Syracuse. I was going to tell you guys today to take the money line if that game was tonight. Syracuse, I think the spread was 16 points. They were 16-point favorites. Thank God I did not take the over on that one. I took the money line. I'm happy with the money line. That game should not have been nearly as close as it was. Virginia comes back late to tie it or take the lead, actually, 2019. Syracuse comes down, final drive of the game, scores a field goal, pulls it out of the bag. Syracuse is looking, they're 4-0 now. They're looking pretty hot. They're not great. I wouldn't put them in the great category, but they're looking pretty hot.
Well, they're the kind that if they can learn to finish, and that's the problem, is they've got the talent to score points, but it's like they take their foot off the gas. And if they can learn to keep their foot on the gas, they'll compete and they'll compete for an ACC championship. There's no doubt about that. It's just, do they have that killer instinct and ability to keep their foot on the gas? That was what happened with Purdue. They took their foot off the gas, and it's, they are a good ball team, and they got a pretty good coach. It's just they got to figure out how to one foot on the throat, one foot on the gas.
Exactly. And like I was about to mention that Purdue game as well. I wanted Purdue to win that game last week, but I'm happy that Syracuse pulled it out. Syracuse is one of those teams that they've been bad for so long that they need to get a couple good winning seasons here.
And I totally agree with you, man. Totally agree. I'm a Purdue guy. I like Purdue. I was hoping Purdue would, I expected Purdue to only lose maybe one or two games all year. They return so much, but losing, seeing teams like Maryland and Syracuse and Rutgers win games, that I enjoy that, just because, I don't like watching teams that's been beat down year after year after year just continue to lose. Something has to give at some point, and I'm with you. I'm glad that they're 4-0. That's nuts. That's nuts.
Would not have anticipated that beginning of the season. So
not at all.
Well, you got any other games you want to cover for today?
No. What are we looking at? What are you looking at for your money line? You're betting for the day, and
so I only have 3 games today that I'm willing to wager a little bit of money on. This week's a rough week, man. There's a lot of games that can go either way, a lot of tough calls, a lot of like spreads and totals that don't make any sense to me for throughout the entire, college football today. I'll just give you a rundown of the 3 games that I'm betting on today.
Okay.
I said earlier that I feel like Clemson has a pretty cupcake week against Wake Forest today. This is only because Wake Forest has struggled against teams that they shouldn't struggle against, coming off a win against Liberty, but they really kind of struggled with Liberty last week. I feel like Clemson, I'm taking them touchdown and a point, 8-point favorites. I'm taking them on the over, cover the spread. I don't see Clemson getting beat by Wake Forest, and I don't think it's even going to be a close game. So.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm going to take Clemson in that game too. I'm betting just straight money line on mine. I'm going to make at least a 5-team parlay just to make it kind of interesting. Yeah, I think
finding 5 teams, 5 games this week is a tough one. So
I found 4. It's that 5th one I'm struggling with a little bit.
All right. Well, you want me to move on to my next game?
Sure.
I got Texas money line versus Texas Tech. I think Texas squeaks out the win. I think it's going to be a really close game. I don't think Texas Tech has what it takes to finish.
That might be my 5th. I agree with you there. I think Texas, I know Texas quarterback got hurt. I don't know where they're at quarterback-wise at the moment, but I still don't think Texas Tech's got enough for it to matter.
Even with their backup, taking Alabama to the last drive of the game, hold them to that many points. I really feel like Texas is a much better team than what they're getting credit for. They're still, top 25 ranked, but there are teams in the top 25 right now that have no business being there. Texas is one of those teams that has the right to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess Alabama was 2 weeks ago. Excuse me, but
did you have any more?
I got Utah money line at Arizona State. Arizona State just fired at Helm. I think Arizona State's in chaos and free fall right now. Not as bad as Nebraska, but I think Utah is just they are a much better team. It's not even I think, it's I know. So taking Utah money line.
I actually like that one better than Texas Tech. Looking at it, the ones that I've kind of looked at, I like Michigan over Maryland. I think I think Michigan will roll in that game. Even though I like what Maryland's doing, I don't think they're going to be able to compete with Michigan.
So, sorry, I just pulled this up. Texas's Quinn Ewers, the quarterback that you thought was hurt, he will be in the game today.
Oh, see, yeah, that's good for them. I'm glad for him because that shot he took, man, it was. I think it was a cheap shot. I'm glad he.
Oh, absolutely.
Glad it didn't put him out for the season or anything. But yeah, I'm going to take Maryland on the money line, or Michigan on the money line over Maryland. Again, guys, I'm a weenie when it comes to betting. I just kind of bet my gut, and I think in the past couple of weeks I've been betting what I think instead of what I know. So me and Puck talked about that. Like I've got to stick to what I know. Kansas is going to blow Duke out. I know Duke's undefeated, but I think Kansas goes in and just absolutely decimates Duke. I don't think they'll be
not. Absolutely not.
There's no way Duke has anything to stop their quarterback, Kansas's quarterback.
Kansas, like I told you last week, Kansas and Kansas State, those two teams I will not put money on when they're playing. Duke is undefeated. Duke plays ACC. Duke has had good teams the last 5-6 years. They know how to win against teams they're not supposed to win against. They keep it close. I do think Kansas gets to win, but it's not going to be a blowout. There's no way this is a blowout, Sam.
I don't know. I'm taking them on the money line. I'm not taking points. So, I'll concede that point, but I think it could be. I think it could be very ugly, very ugly. And then of course Clemson over Wake Forest on the money line. And then I'm going to take Oklahoma over Kansas State on the money line. I was big on Kansas State, man. They just look like absolute trash last week.
They do. They did. Like I said, Kansas State, I will not touch them in any of my bets because if I bet one way, they're going to do it the other. So I don't know. I feel the same way, but I just won't touch it. So.
But guys, my little weenie 5-part parlays only at plus. Let's see, it's at plus 166. So it's not like I'm betting anything, major or big. It is a weird week. I mean, like I guarantee you that Vegas is loving this season of college football so far. You know they are. So many crazy upsets and stuff, and I mean, I just look for it to continue. And like, I don't know, it's just nuts. It's been nuts so far.
I mean, it really like the first 3 weeks have been ridiculous, but this week I think we're finally starting to get into a mold here, getting back into the rhythm of college football. A lot of teams I'm taking the Purdue Florida Atlantic game. Like I have no idea how to bet that game because Purdue looked like heart garbage. They look great to start the season, and then Florida Atlantic looks like garbage. So, I mean, they're asking 57 points. Purdue 16-point favorites. I have no idea if any of that's even possible. So, and then of course it could be. They could be a 70-point game. Who knows?
What's your game of the week? Not betting wise, but what game do you look at the roster of games and say that's going to be the game to watch?
I'm waiting for the Florida Tennessee game. I think that's really the only game this week that has any kind of excitement to me. Just as a fan of football perspective, I like the Florida State Boston College matchup because Florida State's going to whoop up on Boston College. And it's good to see Florida State start the year so strong. Going to be 4-0 here. But as far as football, like the skill level and just watching it as a fan, Florida and Tennessee, and maybe even Clemson, Wake Forest, I had that one as my initial game of the week. But, with Florida, Tennessee, I don't think that they're going to stand a chance.
Yeah, I'm with you. Florida, Tennessee all day long. I think that's the check mark that everybody should have if you want to watch two teams that's going to two powerhouses so far this season. That's going to be a great game. I'm also looking at Arkansas, Texas A&M. I think that's going to be a good game.
Now, who do you have as who would you take for that game?
I mean, honestly, it's at A&M. I don't know. I would probably still take Arkansas.
Texas A&M are the favorites betting wise, and I had to disagree with that. I think Arkansas is the better team.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. They're not much of a favorite, but I guess three of that's going to be home advantage, I guess. But you're looking at a 10 versus a 23. The 23 is the favorite. Still doesn't make sense. I think Arkansas is very well coached, and they're. I don't want to say. I'm going to say they're dirty, but I don't mean it like dirty. I mean like they're a nasty bunch, man. Like they flock to the ball. They play really hard. Those kids are just they're dogs on the field. Like they're Razorbacks. They the name fits the team, and I think A&M just hasn't looked good to me. They just haven't looked good.
I want to see how Vandy does against Alabama this week. This is Vandy's first test in the SEC. Vandy's having a hell of a year. They're going to get demolished, but I want to see how they handle it, is what I want. I want to see the post game next week. I want to see how. I really do. I think Vanderbilt this has got to be their year. Another team that's deserves to be up there. I'm glad that they're having such a hot year. Them and Syracuse, man, they're.
Well, I mean, a part of it's really got to be, and we've talked about this a little bit, the NIL and the portal, it seems like the portal's kind of dispensing players in positions where it's picking some of these teams up a little bit. And that's, you have to love that, right? Is that the way to look at it?
It's back in the day where SMU was a powerhouse and they had all the kids going there. Now it definitely evens the playing field here. Money talks. If you have the money, you're going to get the player. So
yeah. Well, the portal, it's so crazy because you think about, it reminds me like UCLA basketball back in like the 70s where guys on their bench were getting drafted into the NBA and they weren't even playing, and there's big name guys. And it's like you keep all this talent sitting on your bench just to hoard the talent. And really the portal is going to prevent that from ever happening ever again. You might get 3 or 4 4-star, 5-star quarterbacks, but can you keep them is the question. And
it's definitely gonna hurt teams like Alabama and Clemson where you had a freshman coming in like, oh, I can play under Nick Saban, I can learn, and I'll never play until my senior year, but like I'll be there to get the experience, and I'll be going to the NFL when I graduate just because of who I was coached by. Now they're getting into their junior year. It's like, well, damn, I'd really like to see some playing time. I'm pretty damn good. I'm going to go to Miami, Ohio, and I'm going to be their starting quarterback walking on in the portal. So,
well, and that's the thing, and that's the mentality that they should have because, at the end of the day, the most important thing a college athlete can do is put film out. That's the most important thing they can do is get on film. And that they've learned that. And, going to a smaller school, you're putting film out there. And, if you are good enough and you're good enough on film, you're going to get drafted and you're going to make money from that. And I don't know. I think the farther we go with the portal, the cooler it's going to get because it's going to just, you're going to see more Cinderella stories. You're going to see more teams that, that Moneyball mentality where you get these crazy statisticians in that portal and they're going to start looking at all this intangible shit and they're going to be like, all right, we need to get this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and they're going to put together a team that just kicks the shit out of everybody.
It makes everybody coaching that much more important too. Where if you are a coach that's predominantly in like a secured program, like a Texas, Alabama, Clemson, these teams that have been Ohio State. Sorry, I got to rep Ohio State. If you aren't using every bit of your talent you have on your entire roster, you're going to be losing talent to these teams. Where then those coaches that pick up players that have the talent, how do you know how to coach these kind of players? Do you know how to get the most out of these kind of players?
That's true, and so it's going to be more about having the right fit for your program. You know, that was something that I noticed in talking to some of the Hokie fans. They love Neil Brown. They absolutely love Neil Brown. And I made the comment, I'm like, you know, I told one guy, I said, well, what does he bring to the table? I'm like, he's a good recruiter. And he's like, in this, he said, excuse me, guys, I've been sick and can't shake this cough. But he said, in the climate the way it is, what else do you need? You have a offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator. You've got assistants for all those guys. He's like, if the head coach can recruit, that's all you need. And, you know, I haven't really looked at it that way, but it is the truth. Maybe Neil Brown needs somebody like Gary Patterson, what they did at Texas. You bring in an old, an old veteran coach to kind of just be there to be that kind of buffer that walks up and says, hey, you need to call a timeout, and just to kind of get the coach up to speed on certain things. But I was really shocked at how they were more positive about Neil Brown than they were about Brett Pry, their new coach.
Really?
Yeah. I was really shocked by that.
See, in my mind, it should be, UNC over Notre Dame. I have that one too. I can't see Notre Dame. Both these teams, man, are just not playing to expectation. But
no.
I mean, I didn't put that one in my bet slip because that was more my heart over my head. But I feel that one, Mark. So, I was in my mind, my perfect scenario would be the head coach would not be he would have the easiest job on the field because you got your OC, your defensive coordinator, your special teams. They're all taking care of what they need to be taken care of. You're just kind of a coordinator. You're kind of just like, hey, I'll put the ball in your court. You take care of the offense. You take care of the defense. I'm just here to be a figurehead. So I feel like that's what a lot of programs are kind of getting into is like, it really doesn't matter who your head coach is as long as it's a respectful name that, can bring some, bolster your program. They really aren't going to be doing a whole lot.
And Neil Brown can be that guy, I think.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask you about the North Carolina game, but I guess Mark kind of beat us to the point there. You just want to go down the list here and see what we got going on?
Shoo. Sorry, guys. I've been sick as crap, guys. That's why we haven't done more videos this week. Sure, we can go down. If I get the cough, I'll just keep talking.
that weather down in Blacksburg. Well, okay, so here's one. Louisville hosting USF, South Florida. South Florida. This is why I'm considering Florida Tennessee to be such a good game, is because Florida struggled with a team they shouldn't have struggled with, USF, last week. If USF can keep up that level of play against Louisville's hurt. They come in against off Florida State, off of who would they play last week? Let's see, they're 1-2 right now. So UCF. I mean, UCF wasn't a strong team, but they held them with one touchdown. Coming off Florida State last week. I don't know, man. Does USF stand a chance against Louisville?
I think so. I think they can beat them. Louisville, let's see, they've lost to Syracuse. They beat Central Florida, but they only beat them by 6 points. And then they lost to Florida State, of course, 4 points. I think South Florida can absolutely beat Louisville. I watched a little bit of the Florida State Louisville game. I felt like Florida State kind of underperformed in that game a little bit from what we've seen, and maybe Louisville kind of overperformed a little bit and kind of maybe hit their ceiling. I think I honestly wouldn't be shocked if South Florida blew them out.
You talk about keeping your foot on the gas. That's been Florida State's problem closing out games. So
Yep.
Hopefully they can turn that around. I don't think that'll be a problem with BC this week, but going into the ACC schedule here.
What's up, Chris D? Thanks for tuning in, buddy.
Ohio State, Wisconsin.
It's a roll. That's a roll.
So here's a game I saw that I was confused about who the favorite was. Baylor at Iowa State. I get it that Iowa State's at home. Iowa State, both these teams are not nearly as strong as everybody believes them to be. I'm surprised that Baylor, as the ranked team, top 20, number 17 in the country right now, Iowa State's not even ranked. Why is Baylor not the favorite in this game?
Because everybody's wanting Matt Campbell to go to Nebraska. I believe that. I really do believe that sometimes these rankings, when they come out, they take crap like that into consideration just to, I think the powers that be are really pushing the Big Ten at the moment. And that's the results that you get is Iowa State is a favorite in a game where it's obvious that they're not, obviously not the favorite.
Until they come out and win, and they were like, oh,
until they
shit.
come out and win. And the thing is, if they come out and win, that just pushes Matt Campbell and the Nebraska talk even more and more and more. A lot of times it's to drive stories, and they're masterful at their job of driving stories.
Right. I guarantee you, Ames, Iowa is going crazy right now, though. They haven't seen this much publicity in decades. So.
And they're scared to death of losing their coach, I'm sure.
They really are. I really don't think that he goes to Nebraska, to be honest with you. Matt Campbell is stuck in Ames.
I don't think he's a good fit. I just don't think he's the guy. I just don't.
He's not, and I'm sticking with bringing back Ndamukong Suh. He's not a fit either. But I mean, really, where can Nebraska? They can't really go down anymore. You can only improve your program. So.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of guys that they could hire that I think would be decent fits. Bill O'Brien, I think, would be a pretty good fit. But the thing is guys like Hugh Freeze and who's the coach at Cincinnati, Fickle, they really, before they take a job like that, they really need to take a step back and look, because if you have no ties to that school and you go in and try to repair the damage that's done and you can't do it in 1 or 2 years, you're going to be gone. So, and I think Nebraska has tainted themselves to the point where they're going to have a harder time filling that job than they think.
Absolutely. But on the flip side of that coin, Nebraska is a team that can benefit the most from NIL and the portal coming up here. If you hire a solid coach, you still have the prestige of your program to call back on history and try to lure some of these guys into Lincoln. It is going to be more difficult than I think, but they have their work cut out for them for sure.
Well, that's why, like Urban Meyer, I know Urban Meyer is a perfect fit there. He's a big name. He will automatically garner attention. You'll automatically be in the news. The fans will get that big name that they want. He has proven success in college football. I mean, let's just hire him. Just hire him and be done with it, because we all know that's the direction. I think that's the direction they're headed in.
I disagree. I think Urban Meyer is done with football as far as being a coach. I think he stays with commentary. He's tainted with what he did. Left Florida, faking an injury, going to Ohio State, pulling the exact same thing. We're like, oh, I'm old, I'm decrepit. I can't do this coaching thing anymore. I'm going to leave Ohio State. Oh, I'm going to go to the pros and go to Jacksonville. And then all the trouble he had in Jacksonville was, he's done. He's ran out his coaching career. He's not going to be. Enjoy your retirement with Fox or whoever you're commentating
I don't think he's quite as tainted as some of the guys like John Gruden. I would
I
love
would
to
say
see John.
Urban's more tainted than Gruden is because Gruden all he did was send a couple of emails and be a little bit racist.
Right, but the thing is though is nobody's hiring. Like Gruden was the biggest name ever before he went to Vegas. They don't even talk about him anymore. Like he is a pariah. They have completely put him to
You
the
know what?
side,
As,
and
as
that's
soon
what
as
that's.
Goodell leaves office, I guarantee you he comes back if it's within the next 5 years, because Gruden is too big of a name and he's too good of a coach to be fired over emails. At least Urban
Yeah,
Meyer did something that was like, just cause, and okay, now you're out here being infidelity and just having a team that can't win even with the best superstars we could put together. Yeah, it was Jacksonville, but he's got what he had Tim Tebow come back for a practice. Why are you so hung up on Tim Tebow? That was from 10 years ago. Don't worry about him. Like, he's
right.
not good. We've already proven he's not good. You made a lot of bad decisions as a pro coach, and even as an Ohio State fan, I'm glad that you were at Ohio State, but it was your time to move on.
I mean, that's true. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Nebraska. I just, at the end of the day, that job's not as sexy as the Nebraska people think it is.
Oh, they're so high on their own horse that they have no idea.
What about Auburn, Missouri? What happens if Auburn loses to Missouri? Do they
That
fire their coach?
Call it a season. You're done. Um, who is the coach for Auburn right now? I always want to say it's Chiswick, but it's not. It hasn't been for a while. But
I know his name as good as I know my own because I talk about him all the time.
what do we got here? Brian Harrison.
Brian Harrison, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was on the hot seat. This is his second year. He was on the hot seat last year. So far this year, Auburn,
You know what?
I think they're 2-1.
They are.
They lost to Penn State last week. They lost to Penn State badly, is the problem.
See, I'll give you that loss to Penn State because Penn State is a hard program. If you're beating a cupcake team week 1, week 2, or week 0, week 1, whatever you want to call it. Missouri, if you don't beat them, then you're not going to have a shot against LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Ooh, you have a really rough schedule there, Auburn. Sorry. You got to get this win. This is your last shot at you're going to have a tough schedule. Holy shit. Excuse me, but this is a rough schedule.
Like, I like Auburn, and I thought Auburn would overperform this year, and they still might, but I think some of the coaching issues that they talk about when you're constantly trying to fire your coach after 1 year, like that automatically signals trouble. But if they would lose to Missouri today, and it's possible, Missouri, that's possible. They're going to be looking for a coach too.
How has Missouri done this season? Because I haven't paid a whole lot of attention to them. They're 2-1 as well, and they lost to K-State. So, not. You talk about K-State looking good. This is why I don't like Kansas teams, man. Kansas State, Kansas, they mess everything up. But they also have a pretty rough schedule going forward in the SEC. Both teams, this is a must-win game for both teams, I would say. So I don't know how their mentalities are, but
yeah, about the only other wins that I see from Missouri, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, New Mexico State, but I mean the rest of them, you're talking Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean Arkansas. So
see that Vanderbilt game for Missouri, Mizzou against Vanderbilt is week 8. Depending on how Vanderbilt does, and if they can survive Alabama this week, I think that might be an SEC win for them against Mizzou. So,
yeah, I agree. Any other games that just kind of stick out?
Nothing for me that really popped out here. It's like I said, this week is kind of a lull.
I think Minnesota is going to beat Michigan State.
Really?
Yeah. Michigan State has looked like hot trash when I've watched them. Now, granted, I've only watched maybe
Mark it back in the comments here.
maybe three quarters of them so far this year, and they have not looked good to me at all.
They have not looked good, but they play. That's the difference. Where they don't look good, but they are playing good, and they're doing enough to get the victories. Um, I think they're a stronger team than what they show, and I know that's a really weird thing to say, but I, yeah, this one did stand out to me a little bit, but I do think the state Sparty pulls it out. They did not pull it out last week for me, did they?
Let's see. Minnesota's 3-0. Michigan State's 2-1.
I'm trying to look at my notes for what happened last week with Michigan State.
Yeah, I want to know who Minnesota's beat.
They fell against Washington. So yeah, Minnesota might be more of a challenge than I'm letting on here, but
well, they looked awfully. Minnesota, I knew Minnesota kept most of their team, and I thought Minnesota looked really good against West Virginia in the bowl game last year. I was shocked. Yeah, that's it. They beat Colorado.
That's nothing.
Big whoop. Western Illinois and New Mexico State. So really, this is the first game of the season for Minnesota.
I think that was why I didn't want to take it.
Yeah.
What about Marshall at Troy? Because Troy gave them App State a little bit of a challenge there, coming down to a Hail Mary play. Marshall, they played good, but I feel like this is more of a test, and they're going to kind of get trap game here.
Yeah, I mean, Marshall. Marshall overperformed and outcoached a Notre Dame team in a time when they probably should. That was totally unexpected. If you're the one person on this planet that picked Marshall to beat Notre Dame, leave a comment because I want to shake your hand. Marshall. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know enough about Marshall outside of that performance. But when you can beat a team like Notre Dame in their house, like you have to respect that because you can beat anybody anywhere at that point.
Well, I think Marshall showed a lot of weakness in Notre Dame, which is why coming back to this week with Notre Dame playing North Carolina. North Carolina is a weak team too, but geez, like how weak is Notre Dame, or how strong or how weak are they really? Because it fluctuates. There's no middle line there.
Well, I think, I was not big on their coaching hire.
Internal coaching hire, but
I mean, a program like Notre Dame, like to try to establish yourself as when you've never been a head coach at Notre Dame, like
that is
I respect Marcus Freeman for that, like tremendously. I know if I had aspirations of being a college head coach and that job was the first one I was offered, there's no way I would take it. No way. Because I know like the expectations are high. If I go in and take 1 year too long to get adjusted or to learn something, I'm gone. And I think that's going to be exactly what happens is he'll be gone and they'll be on the hunt for somebody else.
I mean, to start off your career, though, as a head coach at Notre Dame, though, I mean, there's no other higher seat in the land there. You're king of the hill right away. If you don't perform, you bring up a very good point. That is an incredibly hot seat. So,
I mean, their first 3 games of the season, I mean, you're looking at, and honestly, with Marshall being one of your cupcakes, playing Ohio State, Marshall, and California the first 3 games of the season, that's not an easy schedule. I mean, it's just not. And then, UNC, BYU, Stanford, and then UNLV, Syracuse. I mean, they're going to lose some ball games. I mean, Notre Dame, there's no way they hang with Syracuse. There's no way. They don't beat Clemson. They don't beat USC. Navy. I haven't watched the midshipmen this year, so I don't know.
I don't think Navy is that good.
But I mean, they're going to struggle with BYU. I mean, they're going to lose. If they lose against UNC today, they may not make a bowl.
Yeah. To get back to Navy, Navy is 0-2 right now, so you probably do win against Navy. But
Okay.
I do think that Notre Dame's their season is in contention right now. I think you have to pull out a win against North Carolina today. But like you said, you're sitting on missing out on a bowl, and for an independent team to not make the playoffs or make the a postseason appearance, you're you're really hurting your program by that. I mean,
Yeah.
you've hurt your program by being an independent for so long now. You're trying to join the ACC. You did that during COVID. Really, I feel like Notre Dame should have stayed in the ACC and just been like, hey, okay, let's get with the times here a little bit.
Well, I agree. I think,
Because I mean, I feel like the ACC was a perfect fit for Notre Dame too.
well, and I do too, whether no matter what conference Notre Dame joins, they could fit well into any of them. Big 10, Big 12, SEC, with the Blue Bloods or the AC, they fit anywhere. But I think it's time for them to finally just make a decision and go with it, because to remain independent, it's going to get to the point where it don't matter how many games you win. If you're independent, you're not going to get in. Like, because that's because what it'll do is it'll encourage some of these schools, West Virginia. I'll use West Virginia as an example, that may not be happy with their schedule in the Big 12 or the way they're traveling or any of that, to say, well, we're just going to leave the conference and go independent and make our own schedule and play our own schedule, just like Notre Dame does. And then, how much more emphasis do you have to put on the independent schools? BYU leaving the independent circuit. I think Notre Dame needs to too. I think it's time.
Well, you talk about UConn, like UConn getting hurt, going independent. They used to be a pretty good team. They weren't good, but they were a solid team. They haven't been any look. They're 1-3 right now this season. They're cupcake. They're nobodies, and that I really feel like not being in a conference really hurt them on that front.
Well, and that's the big thing with college football right now. Join the damn Sun Belt. I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, shoot. I mean, that's like a very competitive league, and I think that's something that the Big Ten and the SEC isn't kind of looking out for. Is you might be the big dogs, but there's some damn competitive teams out there that's gonna pull away from your viewership. It's just going to.
Look, when the AAC collapses here in a little bit, if South Florida doesn't join the Sun Belt, I'll be disappointed. It's where you started. You got up to the Big East when the Big East was a thing. Now you're AAC. AAC is not long for this world. Go back to the Sun Belt. Be competitive in the Sun Belt. Get your chops in at the Sun Belt level. Beat some teams you're not supposed to, and then go forward from there.
They were such a good fit in the Big East. I remember when they came in. I was young, but I wasn't sure, and they came in and they were just. It was a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We've been on for right at an hour. We're going to go ahead and start watching a little football today. Look out for us this evening. We might pop back on this evening and talk about what we've watched throughout the day. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We enjoy talking some football. And guys, if you guys that are watching, if you ever want to come on and talk with us, man, shoot us a message. We'll get you on here. It's as easy as picking up your smartphone and looking into it and talking. It can be that simple. So holler at us, guys. But I'm saying, man, this is the Big Puck.
Have a good Saturday, guys. Good luck on your bets.
Everybody have a good week 4. Let's see. Where's the little thing at? It is. Later, guys.